Well, I am Dr. Ameena Ali. I am the founder and executive director of the Federation of International Gender and Human Rights. I am a Gulf War veteran. I am a mom of 5 beautiful daughters, and I head up a mission that helps with gender disparities, gender and human rights, and those that are afflicted by sexual and gender-based violence throughout the world. I work specifically with the Diaspora and work with women of indigenous, sovereign, stateless, landless, and refugees that are seeking stable societies in where they live.
Oh, that's quite a lot. In fact, we are really going to have a lot to talk about today. The first I would really like us to handle just now is about the Permanent Forum of People of African Descent. I'm sure that some people don't even know what that means to start with. Can you please give us a little education on that, please?
Sure. The new forum will serve as a consultation mechanism for people of African descent and their stakeholders. This is very, very important. We're adding stakeholders to this remedy that we're using because the stakeholders have to hold a great precedence to involving the entire community. Okay, and it contributes to the elaboration of the UN Declaration and its first steps to legally binding an instrument for people of African descent. Okay, that's the overview. That's kind of like if you want to see it on paper, you kind of see that. But what it really does is it works to identify, analyze, and make certain best practices, challenges, and opportunities for the initiatives that address relevant issues for people of the African descent. Now, that in and of itself is its bread and butter. It's finally recognizing that people of African descent have different trials, triggers, traumas, and tragedies that need triumphs and need solutions. And it's relevant to the people of African descent as it highlights the initiatives to address issues relative to those people. So if you look up the Durban, Durban Declaration, Durban as in Nancy Declaration, and you'll see the overview of what it comes from and why it was so very needed to happen. And then you'll see the program action points that we're doing. And this has been going on for like 20 years. So it's adopted now as a landmark UN summit against racial discrimination for people of color and of African descent. So it's starting the mark to help people that have ordinarily not been helped and then begin the conversation to get these solutions.
All right, that's interesting. Now we are trying to understand how PAD was eventually approved. I mean, what are the strategy that was put in place to the approval? Because now we know that the fight had been coming on for a very long time. Now it was eventually approved.
There wasn't really a strategy, and I'm glad that you asked that because so many people say, "Well, why did this happen now? Why is it happening now? What started it? What began it?" There really wasn't a strategy. It was just like we of African descent. We were trying to shout, yell, stand up on box tops and get our voice heard. And we just realized now that this is a new pandemic. The pandemic, not new as in this has only began recently, but this is the look of a pandemic, something that has been happening to a verse of people that need the solutions. And we've already been given the solution. We're already handing out ways to make things better for our people in organizations like the Federation of International Gender and Human Rights. We're already doing the work. The UN is now just catching up with that work and saying that PAD is going to be its voice for people of the African descent.
Okay, now I didn't get the part where you said this is a new pandemic. I want you to explain that. What do you mean by that?
Well, here's the thing. I have always believed that the people of the African descent, or PAD, that's where we get it from, has always had a voice that was strong enough to tell its own story. But because we have been telling our stories and then getting frustrated, we have been more yelling our point. And as your grandmother will tell you, just because you yell it doesn't make it important. Sometimes you have to whisper it and tell it to the right people to make effects. So just like the vaccine is the new effectiveness to get rid of this COVID, talking to ourselves and putting ourselves first in the solution is where we got our greatest strength. Once we started doing that, the United Nations was like, this is a new thing. And then they saw it across the globe. So there were people of African descent in Norway, like you, in Rome, people in the UK, all the people that were not necessarily in the space of where they're from, but they're in other countries shouting this. So people in Rome are saying, look, we still people of African descent, we're still not being done right. And people in Rome are listening. People in Norway, Sweden, Denmark, Czechoslovakia. There's people of African descent all over the world, and they're realizing that the voice is the same no matter where you go. So the UN heard that voice, and through the delegations that they have, they're realizing everyone had the same story. People of African descent need a voice.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. We need a voice, an international voice, all of us put together for a common objective.
Correct.
And talking of objective, people would now be asking, now that PAD is finally approved, then what?
I'm so glad you asked that, because my dad was telling me when I was coming up, he would always teach me how to make money. Now that I'm adult, I have to learn how to keep it. Like, it's easy to make money, but then what do you do with it when you get it? So now I use that same analogy when we talk about, now we have PAD, now what? Like, do we just sit down and say, okay, we have PAD now, we're recognized, or do we use that as our tool to now say, through the United Nations, PAD is now designing such and such and such for us to be better. I know I am using PAD in every conversation that I go through. That's why I was so glad when you brought this topic up, because I am now saying the Federation of International Gender and Human Rights is working with the mission of PAD. I'm saying that now out loud. Before, I used to say I'm working with the mission of the United Nations. I don't say that anymore. I'm working with the Permanent Forum on People of African Descent. I am very specific in why I say that, because what I'm doing is adding credence to my work as it relates to what PAD is doing, and then what it is that the UN is subjugating through the work of PAD. So it's giving accountability to what the UN is doing, and it's letting people know that this is an organization that I'm leaning on. So what that does is that gives accountability to the UN, because the UN is now saying, okay, so who's going to join PAD? Who's going to be a part of PAD? Me. I'm going to be a part of PAD. Even if you don't even know what you're doing, we're going to figure this out together, because this is too big of a voice for us to lose for non-interest. And so I say this for everybody within the sound of my voice: get involved with PAD, register your organization with PAD, make sure you speak about it, use the logo, use everything that you need to do to recognize this and bring this forward, because this is going to be our sustaining voice internationally.